Squinakoi nak now Virginia Hedrick, Shregon Mewmechok, Nek Pulikla, Nachek, Deborah Myers, Nape Sech, Richard Myers. Good morning, my name is Virginia Hedrick. I'm a downriver Indian person, a member of the Yurok tribe from the village of Shregon. In my way, when we introduce ourselves, you situate yourself to the world so that those in the room know who you are and where you come from. I grew up on the Yurok Reservation in Humboldt County along the banks of the Klamath River. I attended a 3-room elementary school that ran on a military-style diesel generator. When I moved on to high school, I took 2 buses and a 2-hour ride to make it to the only publicly run and funded high school on a reservation in California. I'm the youngest of 10. I have 7 brothers and 2 sisters, and the first in my family to obtain an advanced degree. I tell you all of that so you know who I am and what I know about Indian men in the state of California. I've been invited here to speak today about the health status and outcomes of American Indian boys and men in Northern California. As Indian people, we are storytellers. It is how we have transmitted information and our data, as we now know it in Western world data. As Indian people, we know that as storytellers. It's how we know who we are as people and how we came to be on this earth and on this island is through storytelling. So today I'm going to tell you a story. And in my way, when you hear a story, you have a responsibility to share that story, and that story takes its own life. And so what I tell you today, I hope, and what Dr. LeBeau has shared is also its own story. And I hope that takes its own life, and you hear those words, and you take them, and then you have a responsibility to share them. It's your responsibility to talk about the disparities that are impacting our Indian people in Northern California and in California in general. So I want to press that upon you, as I have been from my grandma and the people that came before me, the responsibility of storytelling when we hear these kinds of facts and data, to not lose sight that this is a very traditional way of oral tradition. Dr. LeBeau shared many things about the outcomes of California in terms of poverty, that our Indian people and our young people are growing up in poverty. And why is that important when we talk about health outcome? Because we know that social determinants of health are key to who we are. We know that when a child grows up overweight and in poverty, they're at an increased rate for heart disease, diabetes, a lower life expectancy, based on those 2 things that they have no control over. How much food they have in their house and how much money comes in their house impact who you are as a healthy adult person. The California Health Interview Survey, data collected in Northern California and the 41 most northern counties, including the Bay Area and the Sacramento region, indicate that 1 in 4 Northern California American Indian men and young men, 1 in 4 experience asthma, compared to just 14% of non-Indian counterparts. 22% experience and struggle with arthritis, lupus, gout, and other related diseases. 9% experience diabetes. I believe this is an undercounted data source. We know that diabetes is much higher than that. And what we know about data sources like the California Health Interview Survey is they're done over a telephone. And I can tell you, when I pull up my cell phone now for my family members, I start saving their numbers based on the year and month that the number was given to me, because the numbers change that often, right? So I have Dad 2017, Dad 2016, Dad 2009. So a health interview survey that's conducted over the telephone is not going to reach these impoverished families in the way that it reaches other communities. So while I give these stats and statistics, I want to tell you that they're unstable and often unrated and unreliable. Of our Northern California American Indian men, and again in the 41 most northern counties, 21% are smokers. Of these men, again, nearly a quarter have visited an ER in the last year, compared to just 17% of their non-Indian counterparts. 60% of American Indian men had a delay in care due to the cost or lack of health insurance. As Dr. LeBeau mentioned earlier, there's a serious underfunding of our federal tribal health system here in California, run by tribal governments, including what is known as purchased and referred care. So an individual may not have the resources to pay for an ER visit, and their tribal health program may also not have the resources to pay for that visit. 16% stated that they had seriously considered suicide compared to non-Indians. I want to tell you this part of the story that is not here in this data is where I grew up. I know more Indian men and boys who have died by suicide than have attended a four-year college. And while that is not the only indicator of success or the most prevalent indicator of success, it is one I want you to resonate with you. I told you I'm the youngest of 10. There are 16 years between me and my oldest sibling, and I have conducted my own research and surveyed each of my siblings all the way up to the oldest to try to document how many Indian men who have graduated from our local high school have gone on directly to a four-year college, and I'll tell you that we know more who have died by suicide, and then when you count the number of men who have died by motor vehicle accident, it will break your heart. According to the Indian Health Service, the rate of chronic liver disease among Indians is 4.8 times higher in the U.S. than all other races. While the data on the devastating health outcomes speaks for itself, it's important to acknowledge that Indian people continue to remain invisible in many local, state, and federal reports and databases. So if you go to any county report right now and you look on health outcomes with race and ethnicity breakdowns, you will not see a line for Indian people. It is as though we don't exist in these counties. There's not even an indication or an asterisk that says our numbers are too small or an attempt to pool the year's data. And this is important because if you're going to fix a problem, you have to know you have it. You have to know you have it. Our Indian people are also, like Dr. LeBeau mentioned, racially misclassified. In 2015, the racial misclassification in terms of reporting of STDs was 60%. This was conducted using Tribal Health Program data, Indian Health Service linkage data to state databases. So we know our tribal health programs know who is Indian. They know they're Indian patients. When you match those patients with the same patients that are in the state registry, 60% of them have been racially misclassified. If we don't know what is making us sick and we don't know what is killing us, we cannot fix it. These rates compare to a much earlier study conducted in 2005 that indicated death certificates were also misclassified between 30 and 60% of the time. We are born Indian and we are dying white. What you will not find in the U.S. Census Fact Finder or the California Health Interview Survey is data about our Indian men who still hunt for deer and elk, the number of men who fish for salmon, who dive in the oceans for abalone and mussels, or who throw their hooks in the mouth of the river for eels. These numbers will not tell you the number of men or the percent who went to the high places to pray for balance of the world. It will not tell you the number of men who crowd in roundhouses to pray for the whole world. So, while you have heard these numbers, I also want to tell you there is without a doubt a story of resistance and resilience and survival. And there are struggles that are not documented in these stories. In my organization, the California Consortium for Urban Indian Health, we are working with state, federal, and foundation partners to develop these strength-based measures, because when working with Indian communities, we cannot always tell this sad story. We also have to talk about my brothers who build sweat houses, who go and fast for 10 days with no food and sweat in a sweat house for 10 days. When I tell non-Indian people this, they think it's not humanly possible, and I'll tell you it is. These are the numbers we cannot report. So I encourage the state and other partners to develop strength-based measures that acknowledge and respect cultural indicators for health. If we are truly going to speak about the health outcomes of Indian men, we must first ensure we have the appropriate mechanisms to assess it. Thank you.